this video, we're going to talk about my top 10 reasons why I love living in Deutschland.
Not just to wear the jersey.
So stick around if you want to know what they are. Hey, I'm Jen and I'm from Guatemala.
And I'm Yvonne and I'm German.
And together we're from simplegermany.com, where we help expats settle into life in Germany more smoothly. So before we begin, big disclaimer, right? This is a very subjective list. It comes from my experience, my kind of life living in Germany. And it comes from the perspective of a girl from Guatemala, if you don't know where that is Central America, who is queer, right? So I would say that's like the background to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so disclaimer aside, let's jump into it.
So just to also make this clear, like you mentioned 10 points, are they ranked? Are they whatever? Are they...
No, I have not ranked them of like number 1, number 2. They're just 10 things in general that I like.
That you appreciate.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jen, tell us, what is the number 1 that comes to your mind?
Number 1 is the correctness of people. Of course, this is not all Germans. There's going to be exceptions to everything that I'm going to talk about. But generally speaking, Germans like to follow the rules. And rules are there to be broken, we say in Guatemala.
Well, I would argue that we say the same, but probably I think that maybe the percentage of us that actually do break the rules is a little bit lesser than...
In Guate.
Yeah.
Guate short for Guatemala. Yes, I would totally agree. And I would say this comes to everything and anything, right? Like, well, there's one thing that Germans don't respect the rules, which I'm gonna have a little rant in another video called 6 uncute things Germans do. But generally speaking, you follow the rules. I also saw it during the pandemic, right? During the lockdown, like wearing a mask was not a question. Actually, everyone did it. Everyone followed the rules.
Whether you liked it or not, you kind of like followed it, yeah.
Yeah, respectfully, and so on. So I find that super cool. This is one example of multiple, but that's what I really like. The correctness of everything.
Okay.
And you see that at work, you see that in social living.
I would say you say that in most areas.
Yeah.
I mean, again, obviously, I would agree, it's not everyone, duh. But if you compare what you see on the streets and in your life to... let's say my fair share of life in Guate. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Number 2 on your list, what is it?
Number 2, let me check my list here. Oh, it's security of life. So I would say this falls under the quality of life, generally speaking, because...
for you, right?
For me, for quality of life for me, right? This is also one of the biggest reasons why I left Guatemala is because of security of living. Crime rates in Guatemala are generally pretty high, especially in the city. I would say outside of the city is a different story, but the city where I was living from, the capital city, it can get pretty not secure, and I did not feel comfortable living like that. So when moving to Germany, security was for me one of the biggest wow factors. Yes, there are break-ins into apartments, there is crime, right? I'm not saying there is no crime in Germany, but the crime in Germany compared to the crime in Guatemala,
I would say it's a different amount and a different
type.
Intensity.
Yeah, yes. And type, right? Yeah. And how do you say, amount, I think, frequency also would be, right? Yeah.
But I mean, also, so just to give you like my take on this, I've been to Guate a few times, 3 times so far, and let's just say Jen was extremely protective. I would say that comes naturally, but even more so because of her experiences in her own country, right? And we're not going to go into detail here, but you have experienced crime firsthand.
Yeah.
Physical crime, like violent crime.
Yeah.
I mean, how many Germans have experienced that, right? So, and this is very interesting because we actually, when we talk with friends, it's like, oh, what are you going to record next? Those that are engaged. Jen mentioned this topic of the video, and in that conversation, she actually mentioned security as the number 1 point, and then a few others, which we are going to go through. And that friend was like, wow, like she felt like Jen had opened her eyes because she would never consider security to be one of the main reasons to live in Germany, because we, together with some other, like I would say more Western countries, we take it for granted. It's what we're born into, right? And this is also why I love being with Jen so much, because she opens my eyes on so many aspects in life that I just take for granted, or I took for granted, right? I never learned to appreciate or to actually know that this is not a given for everyone. So this is, I just wanted to highlight that, and I'm getting goosebumps.
Look at you getting out emotional about it. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, it's a very high, and of course we've also had German friends who have experienced also violence firsthand. But I would say this is the The
Exception.
very few and very exceptions. So security is definitely one of the biggest ones for me. Yeah. So now let's jump to not so heavy-hearted topics here. Number 3 on my list is, I can be who I am. Actually, that also comes very heavy-heartedly. So if you're new to the channel, hey, I'm Jen, and I'm from Guatemala, and I'm queer. I don't think but we're married, right?
Yes.
Like, we have a very happy life being a married couple here in Germany. The fact that we can get married and live in a home together and build our life together, for me, is such a big plus. Again, in Guatemala, being gay is such a taboo topic. You don't talk about it. There's no discussion about it. That's it, period. You're not supposed to be this way. That's the end of the conversation. So obviously everything in the system is made so you cannot live your fulfilled life. Versus in Germany, like we mentioned, we have a whole here, also a video about LGBTQ plus living in Germany, where we go into more detail about like not only us as girls, but like what happens to transgender people in all these cases. It's such a positive and different experience compared to Guatemala. So that for me is also a big plus. The fact that I can be who I am and I don't have to hide it.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. What else?
Number
4. Oh yeah, okay. A system that works.
Well, okay. Whoa. Here, usually we get like, well, Germany doesn't work. I would say, well, it does. It just doesn't always. But give me your take.
Yeah. So I would say, obviously, there's always going to be better and worse in life for everything, right? If you compare something, there's always going to be something better, and there's always going to be something worse. And I come from the perspective that mine was always worse. So when I come to Germany, this is obviously better. However, if you compare it to Germany to maybe some Nordic countries or maybe some even more advanced countries, it could be improved a little bit. So my take, again, is coming from this side of the spectrum, right? And a system that works is... like it kind of has to do with first point of the correctness, right? That everything kind of works because the rules are there and people follow them.
But also no corruption in that sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is corruption in Germany.
Yeah, but
however,
not to
it's
the
not
level.
to the extent of Guatemalan
Exactly,
corruption,
yeah.
right? Like the fact that, presidents leave with empty the palace and it's a common thing and no one cares really. So I would say the system that works in everything, right? And this comes to every service and everything, right? Like with banking, with bureaucratic processes, with work,
Health
with paying your
insurance.
taxes, with social security stuff, or how do you call these, like social contributions? And that just works, right? That the fact that I can go to a doctor, I have a health insurance that I pay monthly and the employer also pays monthly, we pay together. And I can use that to my advantage to live a healthy life. That is already super cool.
Yeah.
Yes, we also have the same in Guatemala in the sense of this health insurance thing, but the quality there, it's the public health system is, there's a lot of room for improvement, definitely. So the people that can afford it actually have they have the how do you say this? The luxury of being in a private insurance.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not a choice that you have. It's really a luxury that you can have good healthcare system. Yeah. So I would say, generally speaking,
Well, and education also, right?
Education also, the fact that you have free education and it's good education, right? Like the universities also, you don't need to go into student debt or I don't know how much to pay for your university studies, and it's really good education, right? So that's pretty cool. So I would say a system that works generally as a whole bureaucratic, very bureaucratic sometimes, German country, I think it's very cool. What do you think?
I mean, agree. I again, as a teenager, I always just wanted to leave Germany because it was way too proper and slow and correct and process driven to me. Like too like. So I always wanted to get out of it, right? As probably a few of you can identify with, and I did so for several years. Any occasion that I got, but at some point I just you learn to appreciate what you used to have when it's gone. So I just thought as an adult, as a seasoned adult, I'm just kidding. To give it a shot, because I actually never lived or worked in Germany as an adult, and well, everyone thought I'd last a year, but here I am, like 8-9 years later, and I'm still here. And yes, of course, I also see the hiccups and where things are just like, but I also see the good, and I appreciate the good, and whatever I'm dissatisfied with, I do it better for myself or find a different solution.
Yeah, pretty good. Wow, that's a really good answer. Yeah. So let's jump to the next point here. Okay, number 5, which we're done with the political maybe for now things, is that you can walk everywhere. I would say this is a European thing
Yeah.
generally, not just a German specific thing, but we live in Germany, right? So that's why I say Germany. And I remember when I first arrived to Europe, I arrived in Hungary, actually, Budapest. And I remember I met with a friend at a tram stop, and it was a beautiful day, and then we were gonna go somewhere else. And she was like, hey, like, let's walk. And I'm like, what do you mean walk? Like, how, like, is it around the corner or what? No, it's like a 25-minute walk. I was like, we're gonna walk for 25. Dude, like, why don't we take the train, which takes like 3 minutes? And she's like, why don't we walk, which takes 25 minutes and the day is beautiful and we have no time pressure? I'm like, okay. So we walked. I was exhausted at the end of that day, I must say.
So that's, I think, when Jen learned to have like good walking boots
Yes.
or shoes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I understand why she had that reaction that or you had that reaction that you had. Because when, again, in Guate, there is no, but really, really and seriously, yay,
new word.
no way or no opportunity to walk, really, because in the city where you live, and where, like you mentioned before, crime rates are just the highest, you don't walk just for safety reasons, nor does the infrastructure allow it.
Yeah.
So the only place I would say you can actually really walk is like in Antigua.
Yeah,
or in Flores, which are like both smaller towns that have like cobbled roads and in a very small perimeter. But even you just walk in that perimeter, you would never walk to the next village outside of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Again, infrastructure doesn't allow it, and security as well is another one. In Antigua, which is a very small village, really, very beautiful. If you haven't been there, you should go. Crime rates are not there.
No.
It's the city. The city is a problem. And here in Europe, you can just walk everywhere, which is super cool. So I learned to walk. I got good walking shoes, and now I love to walk everywhere. Like, it's a thing now, right? And also when we have friends over from Guatemala, they're like, okay, let's go for a walk. They're like, what? Or also friends from the US as well, like, what? Yeah, so I really like the fact that, and it also keeps you active, right? Like, yeah, and you go to supermarket walking, you do your errands walking. You obviously can take the public transportation to go further distances. But we have a friend, and actually they're a couple. He loves to cycle, so he cycles when he's alone. But when they're together, they walk absolutely everywhere in Düsseldorf.
Yeah, and that friend walks every morning and evening to work, which is like, I think, like a 35-40 minute walk one way.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive.
Which the tram would take maybe like 10-15 minutes, but she prefers to walk.
Yeah, it's the walking thing, which I think is pretty awesome. Number 6 on my list, let's see what we have here. Oh yeah, it's the work-life balance. I think we mentioned this again in the work culture video that we did, right? But I see this again, like in Germany, people... Wait, how is that? Because last time I said it wrong. People in Germany work to live, and they don't live to work.
Exactly.
Generally speaking, again, there are exceptions, right? Because if you work in a crazy company like maybe Ernst & Young, then you have a different kind of lifestyle in general. But generally speaking, it's like that, right? There's the typical Feierabend, there's the typical Feierabend beer. On a sunny day after work, you see people chilling by the Rhine in this case, right? Like just relaxing. But it doesn't just go in the fact of what people do after work, but also the benefits that you have with work, right? Is that the same point?
No,
Yes.
You're transitioning into the next point, no?
No, this is part of the same point,
Okay.
which goes into the same of like vacation days.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of vacation days.
Okay. You have that all under one.
I have a work-life balance. Like I said, not only what you do with your free time, but what the system also provides, right?
Yeah.
Do we remember how much was the minimum vacation days?
Yes, so it depends if you have a 5 or 6 day working week, and it is 20 or 24 days that you have minimum vacation days.
That is pretty awesome.
I would say the average is like 30, or not the average. Most companies give 30. Sometimes 28, 26, but it's way above what any other Western culture usually gives.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So already there, in all my previous jobs, I think the minimum I've had was 25. And then I had one with 30, and that's just pretty cool. And people take time off, like 3 weeks, a month, to go travel.
And contrary to other experiences maybe that you've had in different countries, like in Germany, like you get forced to take vacation.
Yes,
like if you haven't like entered your vacation days into the system, like your manager will walk to you, look, you have like 7 days now, and I need you to enter 80% of your days into the system. And you're like, What? So they are actually, depending on how big your company is, you need to enter your entire vacation plan for the year, like in January. So you really, and that's also why Germans love to plan, because you kind of like have to, right? No, but that's I agree, and that is, I would say, no matter if you're from Guatemala, the US, Australia, any also like I would say secure and working system country. That is one of the aspects really that is appreciated so much about Germany, right?
Yeah, the vacation days, which also comes into the other point related to that is the
Sick pay?
Sick pay days.
Paid sick days.
Paid sick days. There we go. Because in other countries, when you're sick, actually, some of them actually force you to take a vacation day when you want to take it off. But in Germany, you have paid sick days.
Paid sick leave. Yeah,
paid sick leave. And again, also the employer most generally, again, there's exceptions to everything, but generally speaking, they will force you to go home and rest to recover. The health insurance will kick in, and you are able to rest peacefully while still earning your salary and recover to come back strong in a week or two. Depends on if you have a cold or something else. Yeah,
it's not frowned upon to be sick.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And of course, there's tons of unemployment benefits that the government provides. Now in the pandemic, we saw this big jump into Kurzarbeit, which again, depends what perspective you're looking at it from. But from a system perspective, it's pretty awesome that the people that could not work during that time had some support from the government, right, to at least have some income and not fully dead. Again, not a perfect system. I know there's a lot of controversy about that topic, but generally speaking, because we also have a friend who works in a restaurant, and of course he didn't work for a year, but he had the Kurzarbeit as an income to support him throughout that time, right?
Yeah.
So that is pretty cool. So again, work-life balance in general. What else do we have here? Ooh, number 7, which is a really cool one. I would say this is Germany specific, is that we are in the heart of Europe. And we can travel anywhere from here, man. It's so cool.
So the geographic location.
Yes, that's what I mean. And also we are the heart of Europe. I'm kidding, no.
It's like very patriotic, as you can tell already here by the outfit. Yes.
So from Düsseldorf that we live currently, from here, it's super awesome, right? Because we can travel to the Netherlands, to Belgium, to Luxembourg, to France. Yeah, what else do we have around, right? Like if we need to travel across the country, but we can still hit Denmark, right? Poland. That there's so many, like Czech Republic. There's so many places.
Okay, come on, then fill it up. Switzerland, Austria. What was your favorite little one?
Like Liechtenstein.
There you go.
And you don't necessarily need to fly there, right?
No.
There's also like really cool bus services, like FlexiBus is one of them. FlexiBus, I think. FlixBus, whatever. That I remember I paid from Düsseldorf to Dresden one Easter. I think it was like 15 euros for a round trip.
I mean, that took some time, right? It's again
obviously
time,
on
money,
a road trip,
but if you're on a tight budget, you have the opportunity.
Yeah, you have the opportunity, right? There's also this the BlaBla car. What's the name? What's the German word for
Mitfahrheitsgelegenheit.
Genau.
Mitfahrgelegenheit.
Mitfahrgelegenheit, that you can just kind of like catch a ride with others, and they sometimes also cross borders and take
Which
you for
again,
free.
I think you would never do in Guate just of security
No,
reasons.
you would not do that in Guate, obviously,
Just
right?
jump into the car of a stranger.
Yeah, but I've done it here.
Obviously, the systems are also like, you have to upload your profile and your driving license and stuff, like the drivers are checked.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, just the fact that you drive with someone.
With a stranger.
Yeah.
We did that to Berlin once, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, or twice. I think I've used the system.
Yeah, I've done it. I mean, those are services I would think you would use rather before you are in an employed scenario, more like as a student, or if you have, like I said, not such a big budget. That's very popular, yeah.
Yeah, so traveling to other cities and like across Europe is pretty easy to do.
So the Interrail ticket for Europe, there's so many opportunities.
There's so many opportunities to just like cross borders. And it's super crazy because in Europe, even though we're like all conglomerated in this like space, it's really like a different culture, obviously. The moment, like you're 2 hours away from here and you're in a different world completely, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So I really like that. That's number 7 on my list. Number 8 is, how do I say this actually without actually saying, I will just say it how I wrote it down, is the interaction with different classes, if that sounds so wrong, right?
I was going to say, so I think Gen means like classes of society.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back and first give us the picture you have in Guate. How is that?
Yeah, so in Guatemala, as in many Latin American countries, you do have distinction of classes still, actually. So you do have the rich hang out with the rich, the middle class hang out with the middle class, and the poor hang out with the poor. There is never like a cross social class, or very rarely happening in terms of friends or meetings or stuff like that. People hang out with like their education.
Anywhere, right? Yeah.
Anyways, like everyone is in their own little bubble. And I would argue, or my experience at least in Germany, is that I've been able to interact with very, very wealthy people, and I've been able to interact with not so wealthy people, and it's all happened in like especially in natural, and especially happens in like Brauhäuser. I remember once we were having their dinner and we met this couple who the girl was from Ecuador, I think. They were older, of course, right? And they looked like they had money, and they were talking with their friends about their yacht and I don't know what, but they were so nonchalant, they were so cool, and we also interacted. They invited us for a couple of beers. We had a fun evening together, and at the same time, we've also found people in Brauhäuser that are. That we think they're not so wealthy just because how they obviously interact and stuff. Don't judge. But I would say they're more kind of like, how do I explain that?
They might not be so wealthy. Let's just say it like that. Yeah, they might. But the thing is, just already saying they might, right? So what you're trying to say here is that in Germany there is not a strict separation of classes in society.
Yes.
That everything is blended.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I would say you still have like the elite schools and boarding schools and whatever.
Obviously,
but in general life, like again on the streets, in society, on the streets, in also in like sports clubs, hobby clubs, everything is oriented by your interest. And not by your bank
money.
account.
Yeah,
exactly.
And your wealth, yeah.
Or your. I mean, I would also say there are a few blue bloods that does it. So it exists, but it's by far not as strict. And we interact with anyone. Like we interact with anyone, and very important here, never judge from the looks. Yeah. Because the richest can dress the simplest, and the poorest can dress the fanciest just to show up. So it really does not matter. Everyone is human, and I would say, and in the majority of cases. In Germany, everyone interacts with everyone when they have to, want to, or need to.
Yeah, regardless of Does that come across well?
I hope so.
Yeah, because what I wanted to say really is because when you live in Guatemala, you kind of need to be in the system to realize that it is like that, right? Like you only hang out and you only go like to one, like as an example, let's say there's a fancy new restaurant in this district that only the rich people hang out. And to that restaurant, only the rich people will go to. Not because the others are forbidden to go to, but just because the others can't afford it, right? So if you are part of this rich people club and you go to that restaurant, you will hang out with those people. Never would you have the chance to go that if you don't have that money.
It's a natural pre-selection, I would say.
It's a natural pre-selection. Yeah. Versus in Germany, there are also super fancy restaurants that only certain people can go to, but generally speaking, everyone can afford to eat out in a way, right?
Yeah, and I would argue that any person in Germany for like a certain special event can save up to, if it's the dream and the goal to have dinner in this one fancy restaurant, we will still go. We will not go, oh no, this is not my place, this is not my class.
No, yeah, you would still go and own it, right? Because why shouldn't you? Yeah, I hope that came across well because, you know. Like,
I mean, let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
Your experiences?
Yeah. Anyway, so that is number 8. Number 9 also has to do with exercise and stuff, is that you can cycle everywhere. Okay, you're not going to cycle to the Netherlands. Well, you can actually.
Of course.
Also.
Yeah, from here, from Düsseldorf.
From here, Düsseldorf.
Not from Dresden.
Well, you could actually also. Yes. It could be a cross-country tour. Anyway, so cycling is a really common practice. I would say not like the Dutch. Okay, if you're from the Netherlands, yeah, you get the prize. But also in Germany, there's a lot of cyclists, and I love that. We cycle everywhere. I love cycling everywhere to do the errands, go to the doctor, meet up friends. Wherever we go, we take our bike.
Well, when you're still in the office, you cycle to the office.
Yeah, commuting to office and whatnot. And yes, not every city has a big cycling infrastructure yet. Düsseldorf is still
improving,
developing on it.
Across Germany, yeah.
But it's not uncommon to see cyclists on the street, and generally speaking, the cars respect them, right?
Yeah. And if you have a question about cycling in Germany, also there, of course, we have already taken you on the streets with our bicycles.
Yeah, exactly, where you can know more about that. Ooh, and also super cool, also like you see also whole families, right? Like the mom and dad with their bicycles, and they have these super cool fancy like carriage bikes where like sometimes we've seen even 3 kids in it, and the guys who's there cycling, obviously these are electrical bikes. Obviously, otherwise how do you even like cycle with such big heavy boys in the little basket? But it's not so little, it's quite big. So again, cycling is everywhere, right? And you see families also doing it as a way to commute to places. So that's pretty awesome.
And I would say you learned to cycle in Guate, of course.
Yes.
But it was always just for fun on the place street, right? In
the
neighborhood. It was never outside your gated community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or you would have like certain parks that you go with your bicycle and you cycle there. And
so it's more like a fun, but never a transportation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Versus here, it's a transportation and fun. You have 2 in 1. Yeah. Okay. Number 10 on my list. We end with this one. Is that the Germans know how to party. This is my
Why
German
do you
accent.
speak like that?
Pretend to be. So Germans like they know how to party, but especially in Volksfestivals, I would argue. Obviously, party in Latin America works a lot better, I'm gonna say. But generally speaking, Germans really love to drink and party, right?
Okay, I think we need to go a bit more detail here. What do you mean works a lot better?
Well, again, what is your expectation of a party, right? But generally speaking, Latin America, obviously, party tends to be a little bit more dancing, a little bit more flirtatious, a little bit more, let's call it hot. I don't know, is that a word? No, that sounds wrong, right?
Outgoing? I don't know.
Outgoing.
Okay, so how about this? Let's focus on what you were trying to say,
Yeah.
the Volksfeste. So I would say, so Jen's, I mean, I just gonna say bluntly here, Jen's favorite party ever. It is so stereotypical, but it's just the truth. Was the Oktoberfest.
Yes.
And I would say it was, that's her memory, and I will never take her there again, although she wants to, because I don't want to ruin that memory, because the one time that we went, we just had so much luck with everything, like the arrival, the getting to a tent, the having an amazing table, the getting beer for free all night long, and being with amazing company. So that's why for her it was like the best party. But we've also had pretty amazing nights and fun, like at, like for example here in Düsseldorf, the Kirmes.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You at a Schützenfest, so everything I would say like the typical, like you said, Volksfeste, where I would say the true German party animal comes to shine.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, like you said, the Schützenfest was also, I went to Neuss for, in a specific neighborhood for the Schützens. That was so much fun. The Kirmes here, so much fun when you go to the tents and then the live music and everyone gets a little bit like tipsy. Carnival is crazy, also here in this area of Germany, right? And we have not been there at all, but maybe to finish my German completeness, we should go there once to Mallorca and see how Germans party there once, just once in the life. Just once in the lifetime to see what happens.
I think Jen is referring to the Ballermann. And if you, I'm so sorry, if you... please watch the video of the 3 unconventional ways to learn German to know more about why I am reacting the way I am and she is reacting the way she is.
But anyways, just to try it once. But I would also argue like festivals, like rock festivals and these things, they get also super crazy and cool. So I would say Germans are very like stimmungsvoll. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a word when it comes to like a Volksfest.
Yeah.
And I like that. And also we went to like a Polterabend.
Yeah.
That was so much fun in this also town,
So,
small town in near to Frankfurt.
Yes. So a Polterabend is like a pre-celebration of when you get married. We can go into more detail maybe into with another video.
Yeah. So anything that has been very German traditional in that way, I've felt like the party has just been super cool.
Yeah.
Versus most house parties, which tend to be a little bit boring.
I would argue, depending on who is hosting and what are the guests and what is like the event and the reason and the everything.
See, I'm gonna have Yvonne for these videos because she's always, I make such a hard statement and then I would argue and do hear the positive
No,
thing.
I mean, I agree. There are house parties where you mainly just sit on the couch or stand at these Stehtische, like these standing
the
tables.
standing tables.
And so like, okay, hi, okay, let's do conversation. But then there are also super cool house parties where like you have like a dress up motto.
Yeah,
and
and
like
you
then-
play
and
games.
You play games and it's
yeah.
super fun. So I would not generalize.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
compared to the house parties we've had in Guate, I understand and I see where you're coming from. They're not as lively, let's say it that way, than in maybe a Latin country.
Yeah. But anyways, Germans, you can also party, which I like, and I enjoy going to your folks' parties. So that was my list of top 10 things. I hope things came across as we intended, right? And we did not mean to offend anyone, obviously.
Not me, you.
I do not mean to offend anyone, obviously. And you see by my shirt, I love living in Germany. Really, living in Germany has changed my life in so many ways for the better. So I'm very happy to live here, and thanks for having me here as well, I guess, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're one of us now, no?
Yeah, I am.
Anyway, so please give this video a like if you liked it, obviously, right? And obviously want to support us. Please subscribe, also hit that notification bell. We release new videos every single Monday.
Yes.
Usually at 5 p.m. European Central Time.
Wow,
Oh my God,
yeah.
that's like totally like, woo!
Like
I did not I did not learn this by heart. It just came naturally. And as you have probably heard in our latest videos, if you would like to support us even further, you have the chance to click on the link below to our coffee page and support us through the donation in the form, shape, well, value of a coffee.
Value, yeah.
You can have a one-time payment or also a recurring payment. So it's kind of like the Patreon style, the German Patreon style.
Yeah.
So if you would like to do that, highly appreciate it. Thank you in advance, and already thank you to everyone that has been supporting us on Coffee, and especially Lauren, who has chosen to support us on a recurring basis. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And hope we have a nice week. See you next Monday. Cheers!